John Miller sipped his coffee as he looked out the large window of the Lunar Research Station. The black sky held thousands of stars, and Earth hung in the distance like a blue marble. It was a quiet morning, just like any other. At least that's what John thought. The alarm blared suddenly, making him spill hot coffee on his white lab coat. Red lights flashed along the corridor. "All senior staff report to command center immediately," said a voice over the speakers. John put down his mug and ran. As the station's top scientist who studied possible alien life, he knew they might need him. When he arrived at the command center, military officers and scientists were already looking at the main screen with shocked faces. There, displayed in high definition, was a massive ship. It wasn't human-made. The vessel had a crystal-like hull that sparkled in the sunlight, creating rainbows across the lunar surface. It had appeared out of nowhere just beyond the moon's orbit. "How long has it been there?" John asked, his heart racing. 17 minutes, replied Linda Foster, the station commander. "It just appeared. No approach detected." The room fell, silent when the communication screen lit up. A face appeared, not human but humanoid. The being had smooth, shimmering skin that changed colors slightly as it moved. Its eyes were large, with pupils that expanded and contracted like camera lenses. Its six-fingered hands moved gracefully as it spoke. "Greetings, people of Earth. I am Xylat, ambassador of the consortium and representative of the Galactic Council. We come in peace and wish to establish communication." John's scientific mind raced with questions, but Commander Foster stepped forward, following first contact protocols they had practiced but never expected to use. "Welcome to our solar system. I am Commander Foster of Earth's Lunar Research Station. We are honored to meet you." Within hours, Earth's top leaders had joined the conversation via secure video link. The United Nations Secretary General, Lisa Hernandez, led the human diplomatic team. Earth's military forces were placed on high alert, but the aliens showed no signs of aggression. The Galactic Council oversees peaceful relations between 327 sentient species across this region of the galaxy, Xylat explained, its skin shifting to a pleasant blue hue. "We detected your radio signals and have been observing your technological progress. You have reached a stage where formal contact is appropriate." Secretary General Hernandez, a practical woman with decades of diplomatic experience, asked the question everyone wanted answered. "What are your intentions toward Earth?" "We seek peaceful exchange of knowledge and culture," Xylat replied. "The Council believes in mutual respect and non-interference. We would like to invite a small delegation to visit our ship and eventually welcome your representatives to the Council." The next few days passed in a blur of preparations. John was selected as part of the 12-person team that would visit the alien ship. As the shuttle approached the massive vessel, he felt like he was dreaming, years of searching for evidence of alien life, and now they had found humanity instead. The inside of the ship was even more impressive than the outside. Corridors that seemed to be made of living material pulsed with soft light. Gravity felt normal despite no visible technology creating it. They were greeted by a delegation of 6 different alien species, each more extraordinary than the last. Besides Xylat's people, called the Velen, there were the Grath, who resembled upright lizards with 4 arms, the Mozai, floating jellyfish-like beings who communicated through changing colors, the Durin, short furry creatures with large eyes, and 2 other species whose names John couldn't pronounce. During the formal dinner, with carefully analyzed food safe for human consumption, Secretary General Hernandez extended an invitation. "We would be honored if your delegation would visit Earth. We could arrange a tour of our major cities and natural wonders." The friendly atmosphere changed instantly. Xylat's skin turned deep indigo. The Durin made high-pitched sounds of distress. The Grath representative stepped back, all 4 hands raised defensively. "Is something wrong?" John asked, concerned by their reaction. The aliens exchanged looks before Xylat spoke. "We apologize for our reaction. There seems to be a misunderstanding. We cannot visit Earth's surface." "Why not?" Commander Foster asked. "Your planet is classified as a Class 5 death world," Xylat explained, its voice now more formal. "The gravity, Atmospheric pressure, radiation levels, biological pathogens, and ecosystem are extremely dangerous by galactic standards. The fact that your species evolved there is remarkable. John blinked in surprise. But it's just normal for us. Precisely, said one of the Grath representatives. Your species evolved in conditions that would kill most sentient beings in the galaxy. Your bodies can withstand pressures, temperatures, and toxins that would be fatal to us. The human delegation exchanged confused glances. Earth had always seemed like a perfect cradle for life, not a deadly trap. We have protective suits, offered Linda. Technology that could help you visit safely. Xylat's skin shifted to a gentler blue. We appreciate the offer, but Council safety protocols are clear. All meetings must take place here on our vessels or on your lunar base. Earth itself is strictly off limits. Secretary General Hernandez accepted this with diplomatic grace. We understand and respect your safety concerns. We can continue our discussions here. The dinner continued, but John's mind was racing. He had always thought of humans as fragile compared to the harsh universe around them. The idea that they were considered dangerously tough by galactic standards was both flattering and troubling. Later, back on the lunar base, John found himself alone with Xylat in the observation lounge. They both stared at the blue planet hanging in the darkness. Your world is beautiful, Xylat said softly, but terrifying to us. The atmospheric pressure alone would crush many species. The bacteria in your air would cause deadly infections. Even your planet's gravity would damage our internal organs. I never thought of it that way, John admitted. To us, it's just home. That's what makes you Deathworlders so fascinating, Xylat replied. You don't even realize how extraordinary your adaptations are. Deathworlders? John asked, not sure he liked the term. It's our classification for species that evolve on extreme planets. There are very few in the Council. Most come from gentler worlds with stable climates and fewer dangers. John looked back at Earth, seeing it with new eyes. Will this classification affect how the Council treats us? Xylat's skin rippled with small spots of yellow, an expression John couldn't interpret. It already has. Some Council members were afraid to contact you at all. Others wanted to place restrictions on human movement. In galactic society, we're not dangerous, John protested. Not intentionally, Xylat agreed. But a friendly pat on the back from a human could break bones in some species. Your immune systems are incredibly aggressive. Even your emotional responses are intense, by galactic standards. As John watched his home planet spin slowly in the blackness of space, he realized their first contact had gone well. But the road ahead might be more complicated than anyone had imagined. Humans weren't just joining a galactic community. They were joining it as the tough, resilient, and potentially frightening species from a world that tried to kill them every day. And somehow, they would have to prove they came in peace, despite evolving on a planet that had taught them to survive at all costs. 6 months had passed since humans first met the aliens from the Galactic Council. Earth had changed in many ways. News of alien life had first caused panic, then excitement, and finally a new normal. People went about their daily lives, but now they looked up at the stars with new understanding. Dr. Karen Lewis adjusted her special badge as she walked through the massive hallways of Harmonious Accord, the huge space station that served as the headquarters for the Galactic Council. As Earth's chief science representative, she had moved here 3 months ago. The station was beautiful, with sweeping arches and gardens filled with plants from hundreds of worlds. Light filtered through crystalline walls, creating rainbow patterns on the floors. Karen was still getting used to being one of the only humans among thousands of alien species. Some looked almost human, while others were so different she couldn't tell their front from their back. Some floated in special tanks, unable to survive in the station's standard atmosphere. She headed to her morning meeting with Gental, a friendly historian from the Orvani species. Gental resembled a tall, thin human, but with 4 arms and skin that glowed softly in the dark. The Orvani had been the first to welcome humans warmly, without the fear that many other species showed. "Good morning, Karen," Gental said as she entered his office. "I have gathered more information about Deathworlder classification that you requested. Karen sat down carefully. The furniture was designed for bodies different from hers, and she had already broken 2 chairs with her excessive density, as the station manager had politely put it. "Thank you," she said. "I'm trying to understand why so many species seem afraid of us. Yesterday, a Pelxi mother pulled her children away when I got on the elevator." Gental's skin color shifted to a gentle blue, which Karen had learned meant sympathy. "It is not personal. Humans are classified as Class 5 Deathworlders. This comes with certain assumptions." He activated a floating screen that displayed information about Earth compared to other planets. Earth's gravity was nearly twice what most Council species considered comfortable. Its atmospheric pressure was higher, its temperature ranges more extreme, and its ecosystem more competitive than most inhabited worlds. "You see," Gental explained, "it's not just about physical capabilities. Deathworlders develop differently. You evolved in an environment where death was always moments away, predators, natural disasters, disease. It shapes psychology as well as physiology." Karen frowned as she read through the list of restrictions placed on humans. They had to wear special monitoring devices in public areas. They were banned from certain parts of the station. They had to undergo special training before interacting with fragile species. "This seems unfair," she said. "We haven't hurt anyone." "Not intentionally," Gental agreed. "But 3 weeks ago, a human engineer accidentally broke a Milani diplomat's arm while helping him with his luggage. To you, it was a friendly gesture. To us, it showed how dangerous even a helpful human can be." Karen was about to respond when a loud alarm began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed along the walls and a computerized voice spoke in the common language used throughout the station. "Emergency in Residential Ring 3. Structural breach detected. All residents evacuate immediately. Emergency response teams, to Ring 3. Gental's skin paled to nearly white. "That's my residential section." Without thinking, Karen jumped up and ran toward the emergency. The station's artificial gravity fluctuated as she ran, a sign that something was seriously wrong. Other aliens moved away from the danger, their various appendages waving in distress. When Karen reached Residential Ring 3, she saw the problem immediately. A section of the outer wall had cracked, causing air to rush out into space. The emergency force fields had failed to activate. 3 maintenance workers, a Duran and 2 Velen, were trying to reach the manual override, but the escaping air created a wind too strong for their light bodies. Karen spotted her assistant, Peter Rodriguez, running toward the scene from another direction. They exchanged quick nods, instantly forming a plan without words. Peter braced himself against a support beam and began moving toward the control panel. His muscular body, built on Earth's higher gravity, allowed him to push forward against the rushing air. Karen moved toward a group of aliens who had been caught in the section and couldn't reach the exits. The wind pulled at her, but she remained steady. "Hold on to me," she shouted to a small Pelxi child who was losing her grip on a railing. The universal translators converted her words, and the child grabbed Karen's arm with all 4 of her limbs. Karen felt the pressure dropping rapidly. Her ears popped and breathing became difficult. For most species, this level of decompression would cause unconsciousness within seconds, but humans had evolved with robust cardiovascular systems that could handle pressure changes better than most. She gathered 3 more small aliens, holding them close to her body as she pushed toward the nearest emergency shelter. The pressure was now dangerously low, and her vision began to blur at the edges. Her lungs burned as they struggled to extract enough oxygen from the thinning air. At the control panel, Peter fought against the same conditions. His fingers, thicker and stronger than those of most Council species, pried open the emergency panel and activated the manual override. With a loud hum, emergency force fields snapped into place, stopping the air loss. Backup systems began restoring pressure and oxygen levels. Karen delivered the small aliens to emergency medical workers who had arrived in protective suits. Only then did she realize that both she and Peter had blood seeping from their noses and ears. Their bodies had been damaged by the pressure changes, but they had remained conscious and functional. A Council security officer approached them as medical workers checked their vital signs. The officer, a grath with scale-like skin, looked at them with an expression Karen couldn't read. "You ran toward the breach," the officer said. It wasn't a question, but a statement of disbelief. "Someone needed help," Peter said simply, as if that explained everything. Later, after medical treatment for their injuries, which the doctors called miraculously minor, Karen and Peter were called to meet with Council Member Vorex, one of the highest-ranking officials on the station. Vorex belonged to a crystalline species that communicated through light patterns that their translators converted to speech. "You withstood pressure changes that would have killed most species," Vorex said, light pulsing across his surface. "And you ran toward the danger without hesitation. We have reviewed the security recordings. You saved 14 lives today." Karen and Peter exchanged uncomfortable glances. "We just did what anyone would do," Karen said. "No," Vorex replied, his lights blinking rapidly. "What you did is what Deathworlders do. Now I understand why the classification exists, but perhaps we have been focusing on the wrong aspects of it." As they left the meeting, Karen realized something had changed. The aliens they passed no longer moved away in fear. Instead, many nodded respectfully or made their species gestures of gratitude. "I think we just changed some minds about humans," Peter said quietly. Karen nodded. "They've been seeing us as dangerous because we're strong and tough. Maybe now they'll understand that the same traits that make us dangerous also make us good in a crisis." That night, as she wrote her daily report to Earth, Karen added a personal note. "Today I learned that being a Deathworlder isn't just about what we can survive. It's about what that survival has taught us. And maybe that's something the galaxy needs more than they realized." 3 years had passed since humans joined the galactic community. Earth now had regular trade with 17 alien worlds. Humans had built a permanent base on Mars and were helping the Council map unexplored regions of space. While many aliens still viewed humans with caution, most had come to appreciate having these strange Deathworlders as allies. That changed when the Ravagers came. Captain Samantha Collins stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, Earth's newest and largest military spaceship. She was reviewing star charts when the emergency signal blared through the ship's communication system. "All Council vessels. This is an urgent distress call from the Pulsari system. We are under attack by unknown hostile forces. Heavy casualties. Request immediate assistance," the message repeated, growing more desperate with each cycle. Sam ordered her communications officer to contact Earth Command. But before they could establish a link, a direct call came from the Galactic Council. "Captain Collins," said Council Member Vorex, his crystalline form pulsing with urgent red light patterns. "The Pulsari system is under attack by a previously unknown species. Our defense forces are overwhelmed. We need help." Sam straightened her uniform. "The Defender is ready to assist, but we're just one ship. What exactly are we facing?" "We call them Ravagers," Vorex explained. "They appeared from beyond our mapped space 3 weeks ago. They don't communicate or negotiate, they simply take what they want and destroy everything else. Their ships are partly biological, capable of repairing themselves. Our weapons seem ineffective." Sam's tactical mind was already working. "Send us all the data you have on their technology and attack patterns. We'll set course for the Pulsari system immediately." "There is one more thing," Vorex added, his lights dimming slightly. "The Council has reluctantly approved deployment of your full military capabilities. The restrictions on human weapons have been temporarily lifted." Sam raised an eyebrow. The Council had always been uncomfortable with humanity's military technology, especially after learning that humans had spent much of their history fighting each other. Many human weapons had been classified as too destructive and banned from Council space. "Understood," she said simply. "We'll do what needs to be done." Over the next 2 days, 5 more human military ships joined the Defender near the Pulsari system. They were met by the remnants of the Council Defense Fleet, elegant, ships designed more for exploration than warfare. Their sleek forms were scarred and damaged from battle. Admiral Xol, a veteran Council commander with skin like polished bronze, briefed the human captains via holographic conference. His species had 4 eyes that blinked in alternating pairs as he spoke. The Ravagers have already destroyed 3 major colonies and damaged our main defensive station, he explained. Their ships are faster than ours and seem to adapt to our energy-based weapons. After a few hits, they develop some kind of resistance. Sam studied the tactical displays showing the Ravager fleet, massive, asymmetrical vessels that looked like they had grown rather than been built. They moved in patterns that seemed random at first glance but revealed a hive-like coordination when viewed as a whole. They haven't faced human weapons yet, Sam said confidently. We use a different approach. Admiral Kazal looked confused. Different? How? You'll see, Sam replied. But first we need to evacuate the remaining civilians from the outer colonies. What followed was a crash course in human warfare for the Council forces. Where Council ships maintained safe distances and fired precise energy beams, the human vessels charged directly toward the enemy. They deployed railguns that fired solid metal projectiles at incredible speeds. Simple in concept but devastating, against the Ravagers' biological ships. The Ravagers, used to adapting to energy weapons, had no defense against physical impacts that tore through their hulls. Human ships also released clouds of microscopic machines that attacked the biological components of Ravager vessels, essentially giving them a mechanical disease. When 3 human soldiers in powered combat armor boarded a damaged Ravager ship, to gather intelligence, Admiral Kazol watched in horror through their helmet cameras. The Ravagers themselves were nightmarish. 6-limbed creatures with exoskeletons and multiple sensory organs. They fought fiercely, using organic weapons that fired acidic compounds. But the human soldiers fought with a ferocity that matched the aliens. When one section of the ship became too dangerous, they deliberately breached the hull, letting the vacuum of space clear out the Ravagers while they continued to function in their sealed suits. They're intentionally exposing themselves to space, Admiral Kazol said in disbelief as he watched the feed. No Council species would consider such a tactic. Standard procedure for shipboarding in contested environments, explained Lieutenant Ryan Ward, the human liaison officer assigned to Admiral Kazol. Our combat suits are designed to function in vacuum for up to 8 hours. The Council observation team watched as the human soldiers continued fighting despite injuries that would have incapacitated most species. One soldier, her arm badly burned by Ravager acid, simply sealed the damaged section of her suit with emergency foam and kept advancing. The first day of battle ended with the Ravagers pulling back to regroup. It was the first time they had failed to overwhelm a defended system. The Council ships had taken heavy damage, but the human vessels, while not unscathed, remained operational. In the quiet after battle, Sam visited the medical bay on her ship. 23 human soldiers had been wounded and 2 had died. The ship's doctor, Greg Patterson, looked exhausted as he treated a young Marine with a deep cut across his chest. They don't understand us, Greg said quietly to Sam when she asked how the injured were doing. I've got Council medical observers watching our procedures, and they keep asking why our wounded can still function with injuries like these. Sam nodded. Their species evolved on safer worlds. Pain for them is usually a sign of serious damage. They don't have our capacity to push through it. It's not just physical, Greg added, lowering his voice. One of their psychologists was shocked that our people are making jokes after combat. He thought they should be traumatized. Sam smiled slightly. Humor in the face of death. Another human specialty. The next day, the Ravagers returned with reinforcements. The battle resumed, with greater intensity. This time the human ships coordinated more closely with Council vessels, teaching them to time their energy weapons to hit just after physical impacts had damaged the Ravagers' adaptive shields. On the 3rd day, when Ravager borders breached, the Council defensive station, a squad of human Marines led by Sergeant Frank White rushed to help the station's security forces. The Council guards had been overwhelmed by the Ravagers' physical strength and numbers. Frank's squad moved through the station with practiced efficiency, their heavy boots clanging on metal floors. When they encountered a group of Ravagers cornering some civilian workers, they didn't hesitate. Their weapons fired special rounds designed to minimize damage to the station while maximizing impact on organic targets. The Council security chief, a tall Velen named Tala, watched in amazement as the human soldiers worked together like parts of a single organism. They communicated with hand signals and moved in formations developed over centuries of human conflict. "You fight like you've been doing this your whole lives," Tala said when the area was secure. Frank shrugged as he reloaded his weapon. "Humans have been fighting since we first picked up rocks and sticks. We're good at it because we've had a lot of practice." By the end of the second week, the combined human and council forces had pushed the Ravager fleet back beyond the Pulsari system's outer planets. The cost had been high. 2 human ships heavily damaged, 1 council cruiser destroyed, and hundreds of lives lost. Captain Sam Collins stood before the Galactic Council in their emergency session, still wearing her battle-scarred uniform. The council chambers, usually a place of careful diplomacy, now felt like a war room. "The Pulsari system is secure," she reported simply. "The Ravagers have retreated beyond the Galactic Rim monitoring stations. We're already organizing humanitarian assistance for the affected colonies." The council chamber remained silent as the implications sank in. The peaceful galactic society had survived only because they had reluctantly welcomed these strange, fierce creatures from a deadly world into their midst. The Deathworlders had become their protectors. Council leader Genva stood, his forearms raised in the traditional gesture of profound gratitude. "Captain Collins, humanity has demonstrated today that the same traits that make you dangerous also make you invaluable allies. The Council acknowledges our debt to Earth." Sam nodded respectfully, but her mind was already on the next steps. The defenses that would need strengthening, the wounded that needed care, the new weapons that would need developing. Because she knew one thing with certainty. The Ravagers would return, and when they did, the galaxy would need its Deathworlders again. 8 years had passed since humans joined the galactic community. After helping defeat the Ravagers, humans were no longer seen as just dangerous creatures from a deadly world. They were valued allies, though many species still found them intimidating. Daniel Wright stood at the window of his office looking out at the icy landscape of New Anchorage. The planet's 3 small moons hung in the purple sky, and in the distance, he could see the mining facilities that were the colony's main purpose. The temperature outside was -70 degrees, and radiation levels were high enough to kill most galactic species within minutes. Humans called it home. Daniel had once been a simple geologist from Colorado. Now he was the governor of New Anchorage, one of 12 human colonies on worlds the Council had previously classified as uninhabitable. This particular planet, officially named HC-2187 but nicknamed Frostbite by the colonists, was rich in rare minerals vital for advanced technology. "Governor, the science directorate delegation has arrived," said his assistant through the intercom. Daniel straightened his jacket and headed to the landing bay. The visitors had come to study how humans managed to survive here. It was the 3rd such delegation in 2 years. The alien scientists emerged from their shuttle wearing heavy protective suits that made them look like puffy walking balloons. Their leader, Director Alara, belonged to a species called the Trill. She had delicate features and skin that shimmered with small blue dots. Even through her protective helmet, Daniel could see her expression of wonder and concern. "Welcome to New Anchorage," Daniel said warmly. "We're honored by your visit." "Thank you for having us, Governor Wright," Ilara replied, her translator converting her musical language to English. "I must admit, even with these protective suits, I feel uncomfortable knowing what lies beyond these walls." Daniel smiled. "To us, it's just another Tuesday. Let me show you around." He led them through the colony, which had grown from a small mining outpost to a thriving community of 7,000 people. The central hub was built underground to shield from radiation storms, but large light wells and gardens created open spaces that didn't feel confined. "Your people live here permanently?" asked another scientist, Professor Nex, as they watched children playing in a park area with artificial sunlight mimicking Earth's spectrum. "Most of us do," Daniel confirmed. "Some rotate back to Earth every few years, but many have made this their permanent home. My wife and I have been here for 6 years now." "But how do you manage the psychological impact?" Director Alara asked, clearly troubled. "The constant danger? The isolation?" Daniel laughed. "We've created a community. We have game nights on Thursdays, movie screenings on Saturdays, 2 excellent bars, and a surprisingly good theater group. The aliens looked at each other in confusion. For them, surviving in such a harsh environment would require constant focus on safety protocols. The idea that humans could relax and enjoy entertainment while living on the edge of death was difficult to comprehend. "Would you like to see the mining operation?" Daniel offered. "We've developed some interesting techniques for extracting thorium in high radiation environments." As they boarded the transport vehicle that would take them to the mines, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the colony. Red lights flashed along corridors, and a calm voice announced, "Attention, radiation storm approaching, level 4 severity. All surface personnel return to shelter. Storm shutters engaging. Estimated duration, 6 hours. The alien delegation froze in fear. Level 4 radiation storms were deadly, even by human standards. "Don't worry," Daniel assured them. "This happens about once a month. We're well prepared." He guided them to a shelter area where colonists were calmly gathering. Children were being led by teachers into special playrooms. Workers from surface operations arrived, removing their protective gear in airlocks before joining the others. "Drowny, can everyone be so calm?" Professor Nex asked, his voice trembling slightly. "The radiation levels outside will increase tenfold." "Because we've done this dozens of times," Daniel explained. "Our shelters are secured, our systems are redundant, and we've never lost anyone to a storm. Besides, we plan for these events. Movie night was scheduled for tonight anyway." For the next 6 hours, while deadly radiation bathed the planet's surface, the aliens watched in amazement as humans treated the potentially deadly situation like a community holiday. Families gathered to share meals. Children played games. A group of miners started a poker tournament. Engineers calmly monitored the colony's systems, occasionally making minor adjustments. Director Alara sat with Daniel and his wife Amy in their apartment, still wearing her protective suit, though it wasn't necessary inside the colony. "I don't understand," she admitted. "Our psychological profile suggested that intelligent beings would experience severe stress in these conditions. Yet your people seem happy." Amy, who worked as the colony's chief engineer, smiled. "Humans are adaptable. Throughout our history, we've lived in deserts, Arctic tundra, high mountains, and dense jungles. We make ourselves at home wherever we go." "But this planet is actively trying to kill you," Ilara insisted. "So was Earth," Daniel replied simply. "We evolved on a world with predators, natural disasters, disease, and changing climates. We survived by adapting and by forming communities." When the storm passed, the delegation continued their tour. They visited the mines where humans worked in conditions that would be impossible for most species. They saw the greenhouse complexes where Earth plants had been modified to grow in the planet's weak sunlight. They met doctors who had developed treatments for radiation exposure, and engineers who had created machines that could function in the extreme cold. On their final day, Daniel took them to a ridge overlooking the colony. Despite their protective suits, the aliens were nervous about being on the surface. Daniel stood comfortably in a standard cold-weather suit, the kind used on Earth for Antarctic expeditions. "Before you leave, I wanted you to see this," he said, pointing to a new construction site at the edge of the colony. "We're building a school. Not just classes within the main complex, but a dedicated building with sports facilities, science, labs, and an auditorium." "You're expanding?" Professor Nex asked in surprise. "We thought this was a temporary mining operation." Daniel shook his head. "This is our home now. People are having children here. They're putting down roots. Next year, we'll break ground on a university campus." Director Alara studied him through her helmet. "You're not just surviving here, you're thriving." "That's what humans do," Daniel said with pride. "We don't just endure harsh conditions, we make them better. And we're doing the same thing on 11 other worlds that the Council thought were uninhabitable." As the delegation prepared to leave, Director Alara presented Daniel with an official document. "The Science Directorate has completed its analysis," she said formally. "We are recommending to the Council that the classification system for habitable worlds be revised. The category uninhabitable clearly requires adjustment when humans are involved." Daniel smiled. "What will you call it instead?" "Human viable," she replied. and we estimate there are approximately 18,000 such worlds within Council space. Planets we had written off that could now become home to billions. After the delegation departed, Daniel returned to his office and opened a communication channel to Earth. He spoke directly to the United Earth Government's Council representative. The Science Directorate is officially recognizing what we've been demonstrating for years, he reported. By human standards, almost 10% of the planets in Council space are habitable. They're revising their classification system. The representative nodded. Well done, Governor. This changes everything for our expansion plans. Daniel looked out at the harsh landscape that his people had claimed as their own. It also changes everything for the Council. They've been facing overpopulation on their core worlds for centuries. Now we're showing them how to live on worlds they thought were impossible. From feared Deathworlders to valued pioneers, the representative mused. Who would have thought? Daniel smiled as he watched new colonists disembarking from a transport ship, their faces full of excitement, despite the dangerous world that awaited them. That's the thing about humans. We can adapt to almost anything, even being aliens in a galaxy that finds us terrifying. And as the radiation-streaked sky darkened into night, the lights of New Anchorage shone like a beacon of human determination on a world that had never known intelligent life before. A world that tried to kill its new inhabitants every day, yet couldn't overcome their stubborn insistence on not just surviving but making this deadly place their home. 20 years had passed since humans first met the aliens from the Galactic Council. In those 2 decades, humanity had gone from frightening newcomers to respected members of the galactic community. Humans now lived on 37 planets, many of which had once been thought too dangerous for any intelligent life. Susan Morgan straightened her formal diplomatic uniform as she prepared to address the full Galactic Council. As Earth's ambassador, she had been summoned to this special session where the Council would finally vote to remove the restrictive Deathworlder classification from humanity. The Great Council chamber was filled with representatives from over 300 different species. Some floated in anti-gravity fields, others sat in pools of special liquids, and many occupied seats modified for their unique body shapes. The chamber fell silent as Susan walked to the speaker's platform at the center. Despite her calm appearance, Susan felt nervous. She had worked for this moment for years. Growing up in a small town in Ohio, she never imagined she would one day speak for all of humanity before an audience of alien species. Distinguished members of the Council, Susan began, her voice clear and strong. 20 years ago, your explorers discovered a species that frightened you. We were too strong, too aggressive, too willing to risk our lives. You called us Deathworlders as if it were something to be ashamed of. She paused, looking around the vast chamber. Many of the alien representatives shifted uncomfortably. Today, I stand before you to acknowledge that you were right. We are Deathworlders. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every day. Every adaptation we have was paid for in blood and suffering over millions of years. This made us who we are. The large screen behind Susan lit up, showing images from the past 20 years. It showed human doctors working in contamination zones, treating diseases that were harmless to humans but deadly to other species. It showed human engineers building structures on worlds with crushing gravity or toxic atmospheres. It showed the evacuation of Proxima Colony during the solar flares that would have killed any other species. But being a Deathworlder isn't about destruction, Susan continued. It's about survival. Not just our own survival, but the survival of those we care about. And over these 20 years, we have come to care deeply about our galactic neighbors. The Toem screen showed human ships forming a defensive line against the second Ravager invasion 5 years earlier. It showed human scientists developing vaccines for a plague that had threatened to wipe out the Duran species. It showed human teachers working with children from a dozen different worlds. We've opened regions of space previously considered uninhabitable. We've developed technologies that function in environments too hostile for your engineers to work in. Our immune systems have helped develop treatments for diseases that once devastated entire species. Susan's voice grew stronger as she spoke. And yes, when the Ravagers came, we fought with a ferocity born from thousands of years of protecting our own. You invited predators into your midst, But you also invited protectors. The chamber remained completely silent. Many of the council members who had once feared humans now looked thoughtful. That is the legacy of Earth, Susan said. Not just that we survived our death world, but that we've used what it taught us to help others survive too. She gestured to a group of human scientists and engineers seated nearby. These people have spent the last 5 years developing the colony shield technology that now protects 15 of your most vulnerable worlds from radiation storms. They did this not because Earth benefits, but because they saw a problem they could solve. Susan pointed to another group of humans. These doctors volunteered to live on Duran Prime during the Great Plague, risking their lives because their immune systems gave them a better chance of finding a cure. And they did find that cure, saving billions of lives. The council leader, a Velen named Zorval, rose from his seat. His skin shifted through colors of deep blue and purple as he spoke. Ambassador Morgan, the council has reviewed all evidence presented over the past 5 years. It is true that the term Deathworlder was once used with fear and suspicion, but perhaps we should have seen sooner that evolution on such a world creates not just physically resilient species, but mentally and emotionally resilient ones as well. Zorval made a gesture and the Great Seal of the Council appeared on the screen. The classification is hereby removed. Humanity is recognized as full and equal members of the galactic community, with all rights and responsibilities therein. He paused, then added something unprecedented in Council history. And we thank you for teaching us that what we fear may be precisely what we need most. Applause erupted from throughout the chamber, expressed in hundreds of different ways by hundreds of different species. Some flashed colors, others released pleasant scents, and many made sounds of approval that the translation system couldn't quite capture. As Susan left the chamber, she was met by John Miller, now an old man. 20 years earlier, he had been the first human to speak with aliens on the lunar base. Now he served as an advisor to the ambassador. "Well done," he said warmly. "I never thought I'd see this day when we first met Xylat and learned we were considered dangerous monsters." Susan smiled. "We were dangerous. We still are. But now they understand that danger can be directed at threats, not at friends." "What happens next?" John asked as they walked toward the Earth Embassy. "We keep doing what we've been doing," Susan replied. "Exploring worlds other species can't visit. Building colonies on planets they can't inhabit. Standing ready when threats like the Ravagers appear." She stopped at a large window overlooking the spectacular view of the galaxy's spiral arm. "But most importantly, we keep showing them that being born on a world that tries to kill you doesn't make you killers. It makes you survivors, and survivors help others survive too." Later that day, Susan sat at her desk writing an official message to be sent back to Earth, where billions would celebrate this historic recognition. She thought carefully about what to say, about how to capture the journey from feared outsiders to respected equals. In the end, she chose words that echoed the thoughts of many humans who had worked so hard to change the Council's perception. "Dear Galactic Council, you're welcome. Sincerely, a Deathworlder." The message would be transmitted across thousands of light years to Earth. It would be displayed on screens in cities and colonies where humans lived and worked. And everywhere, people would understand its meaning. They had not changed who they were to please the galactic community. Instead, they had shown the galaxy that the very traits that made them dangerous, their strength, their tenacity, their willingness to face death, also made them the friends you wanted when facing an uncertain universe. As Susan sent the message, a notification appeared on her screen. The Council had just approved humanity's proposal to lead the expedition into the unexplored region beyond the galactic rim, a mission considered too dangerous for any other species. Susan smiled. The Deathworlders were going exploring, and the galaxy would never be the same.